a black woman snatched the billionaire CEO's first-class seat in front of everyone. But the moment he stepped forward and said, "I own this airline," the entire plane fell silent. The airport was buzzing with the usual chaos of rushing footsteps, rolling suitcases, and boarding calls echoing through the vast terminal. But amid the noise and the movement, one particular scene was about to change the course of many lives. Imagine this. A crowded gate for a first-class international flight, where people in sharp suits and elegant dresses waited to board, their eyes occasionally darting to their expensive watches. And right there, in the middle of it all, a young black woman stood confidently, her hand clutching a sleek boarding pass, her heart racing with both nerves and determination. She wasn't just any passenger. Her name was Amara, and she had never even dreamed of flying first class in her life. Yet today, she had a plan that would either give her the thrill of a lifetime or leave her humiliated in front of the entire gate. What no one around her knew was that she was about to walk onto that plane, take a seat that wasn't hers, and sit in a chair reserved for someone who wasn't just rich, but unimaginably powerful. Amara had grown up watching planes cut across the sky, believing they were symbols of a world she'd never touch. She had worked as a waitress for years, saving what little she could, helping her younger siblings through school. Life hadn't been fair, and opportunity never knocked on her door. But she carried inside her a fiery belief. Sometimes you had to create your own chance, even if it meant bending the rules. Today, she had been given a discounted economy ticket from a friend who worked at the airport. But when she noticed a glitch in the online check-in system that had accidentally printed her a duplicate boarding pass, her heart skipped a beat. It was for seat 1A, first class, the kind of seat reserved for billionaires, celebrities, and powerful people. And instead of ignoring it, Amara thought, why not? Just once, let me taste how it feels to live on the other side. As the boarding call echoed through the speakers, "First-class passengers, you may board now." Amara smoothed down her simple but neatly pressed dress, held her chin high, and walked forward as though she belonged there. The gate attendant scanned her pass, and to Amara's shock, the system beeped green. No alarms, no questions, just a polite smile as the attendant said, "Welcome aboard." Amara's palms were sweaty, her stomach a knot of excitement and fear. But she didn't look back. She stepped onto the jet bridge, her footsteps echoing like a drumbeat announcing her daring gamble. When she entered the first-class cabin, she nearly forgot to breathe. Plush leather seats stretched wide like thrones, champagne glasses sparkled on the armrests, and attendants smiled with rehearsed grace. She felt her throat tighten as she made her way to seat 1A, the very front, right by the window. Slipping into it, she felt the buttery softness of the leather embrace her, and for a moment, she closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "This is my seat. For today, I belong here." Passengers around her paid no attention. They were too busy with their phones, their briefcases, or their expensive scarves. Amara let herself relax, sipping water poured by a smiling attendant who didn't question her presence. For the first time in her life, she felt like she had escaped the world that kept reminding her of her limits. But little did she know, the real owner of seat 1A was about to arrive, and when he did, the illusion would shatter. The footsteps came first, measured, calm, and powerful. The kind of footsteps that made people look up before they even saw who it was. A tall man in a tailored suit, with salt and pepper hair and an aura that screamed authority, entered the cabin. His eyes scanned the room, sharp and calculating, before landing on her. Amara froze as the attendant greeted him with extra warmth. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Kingston." That name made even other first-class passengers glance up. Alexander Kingston, the billionaire CEO of Skylux Airlines. The man who owned the very plane they were sitting in. The man whose name appeared on every aviation magazine, every business headline, every charity gala. And the man who was now staring directly at Amara, His brow arched ever so slightly. Amara's throat went dry. Her heart hammered so loudly she swore people could hear it. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, and then he said in a voice that was calm but carried the weight of power, "Excuse me, young lady. You're in my seat." The words sliced through her like a knife. Passengers turned their heads, attendants stiffened, and the once secure bubble Amara had built around herself began to collapse. Her mind raced for excuses, explanations, anything that could save her from this humiliation. But before she could speak, Mr. Kingston leaned in slightly, his eyes narrowing as he delivered the words that would silence her completely. "I own this airline." The cabin fell into a hush so deep that even the sound of the engines humming outside seemed distant. Amara's fingers tightened around the armrest, as if she could hold on to her dignity through sheer strength. Her face grew hot, her pulse thundering in her ears. She had been caught, not just by any passenger, but by the billionaire who literally owned the airline. Every instinct in her screamed to stand up, apologize, and rush out of the plane before she became the story everyone gossiped about for weeks. But something inside her froze her in place, a mixture of pride, fear, and desperation. For once in her life, she didn't want to surrender so easily. Alexander Kingston didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm tone, the quiet authority in his posture, made even the flight attendants hesitate to intervene. Amara looked up at him, trying to find her words. I thought this was my seat," she whispered, though even she knew how weak that sounded. His eyes searched her face, not with anger, but with something far more unsettling, curiosity. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying her. The attendant stepped forward nervously, fumbling with a tablet to check the manifest. "Mr. Kingston, please forgive us. There must be some mix-up. We'll resolve this immediately." Amara wanted the floor to open up beneath her. She wanted to disappear. Passengers in the neighboring seats leaned slightly forward, pretending not to watch but unable to resist the spectacle. To them, it was just entertainment. Someone daring to sit where they didn't belong. But instead of exploding or demanding she be thrown out, Alexander surprised everyone. He glanced at the attendant and then back at Amara. "No," he said firmly. "Leave her." His voice carried finality, the kind that ended all discussion. The attendant blinked, confused, but nodded obediently. Amara's stomach flipped. What did he mean? Alexander gestured gracefully to the seat beside her, 1B, which had also been reserved exclusively for him. "I'll take this one," he said, sitting down with the elegance of a man used to bending situations to his will. The attendants rushed to bring him champagne, clearly nervous, while the cabin buzzed with silent questions. Why would the CEO of the airline allow this stranger to sit in his seat? Amara couldn't believe what had just happened. She sat stiffly, every muscle tense, feeling the weight of his presence beside her. The smell of his expensive cologne, the quiet confidence radiating from him, made her hyper-aware of every breath she took. Finally, he turned his head slightly toward her, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "Now," he said softly, "tell me the truth. Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to spin some excuse about mistaken identity or a mix-up with boarding passes. But under his gaze, the words dissolved. So instead, she said the only thing that came to her lips. "I just wanted to know what it feels like," she admitted. Her voice cracked slightly, but she held his gaze. "Just once. To sit here. To feel like the world isn't closed to me." His expression didn't change, but his eyes softened just barely. He leaned back in his seat, sipping his champagne, as if considering her words. "You know," he said after a pause, "most people who sneak into places they don't belong end up being escorted out in handcuffs. You're lucky I'm in a good mood today." Amara's cheeks burned. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just..." I work so hard, and it feels like no matter what I do, people like me never get to touch this world. And when the chance came, even by accident, I couldn't stop myself. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then he gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile. You're bold, he said simply. That can get you into trouble. But sometimes, it can open doors others never dare to touch. His words lingered in the air like a riddle, leaving Amara unsure whether he was mocking her or testing her. The flight attendants, now reassured, began serving the passengers their pre-flight treats. Amara accepted a warm towel with trembling hands, her mind racing. What had she just stumbled into? Was he toying with her? Or did he see something in her she didn't even see in herself? As the plane taxied down the runway, Alexander remained silent, focused on a sleek laptop he had pulled from his bag. Amara stole glances at him, wondering what it must be like to live a life where even the air around you bent to your will. He seemed untouchable, untamed by the chaos that ruled ordinary people's lives. And yet, here he was, sitting beside a woman who had no right to be in his world, choosing not to expose her. The plane lifted into the sky, and with it, Amara felt herself being carried into something far greater than she had planned. This wasn't just a stolen seat anymore. This was the beginning of a story she could never have imagined. Hours into the flight, Alexander closed his laptop and finally turned to her again. Tell me, he said. What do you do? She hesitated, embarrassed. I'm a waitress at a diner downtown. I've been working there for years, saving, helping my family. It's nothing compared to. He interrupted, his voice steady. Don't diminish yourself. Honest work is never nothing. He studied her again, as if peeling back layers. You've seen life from the ground. That gives you a perspective most people in this cabin lack. Never underestimate that. His words stunned her. For a man who owned skyscrapers, airlines, and empires, to acknowledge her struggle felt surreal. She searched his face, trying to understand why he was even bothering to talk to her. But before she could ask, he leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I'm going to make you an offer before this flight ends. Whether you take it or not will be up to you. But remember this moment. You've already proven you're willing to take risks. Amara's breath caught. She didn't know what he meant, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life was no longer ordinary, and when this plane landed, nothing would ever be the same. The hours passed, but Amara couldn't relax. Her mind replayed Alexander's last words again and again. I'm going to make you an offer before this flight ends. What could a billionaire possibly want with her? A waitress who had stumbled into first class by accident. She tried to distract herself by watching a movie on the small screen in front of her, but her eyes kept drifting to the man beside her. He was reviewing documents, sending emails, making phone calls through the plane's private line. Every gesture was efficient, precise, like someone who carried entire empires on his shoulders without breaking a sweat. At one point, he caught her looking and raised an eyebrow. Curious, aren't you? Amara flushed. I didn't mean to stare. It's just, I've never been this close to someone like you. Someone like me? He repeated, setting his laptop aside. You know, powerful, rich, important, she said, fumbling for words. Alexander chuckled, a low, measured sound. Power and money don't make someone important, Amara. They just make people notice you more. Importance comes from what you do with what you have. His eyes held hers. And from the little I've seen, you have something most wealthy people lack, fearlessness. Her heart skipped. Fearless? She didn't feel fearless. She felt terrified, exposed. But maybe he saw something in her she couldn't see in herself. The attendants served dinner. Fine crystal, silver cutlery, food plated like art. Amara hesitated before touching hers, unsure how to even hold the fork without revealing her inexperience. Alexander noticed, But instead of mocking her, he casually began eating, his movements smooth but simple, as though reminding her she didn't have to perform for anyone. Grateful, she followed his lead, slowly relaxing enough to enjoy the rich flavors she'd never tasted before. When dessert was cleared away and the cabin dimmed for passengers to sleep, Alexander finally leaned closer, his voice quiet but firm. "You said earlier you wanted to feel like the world wasn't closed to you. What if I told you it doesn't have to be?" Amara stared at him confused. "What do you mean?" "I run more companies than I can count," he said. "Airlines, hotels, logistics. I meet thousands of people a year, but very few who dare to cross invisible lines like you just did. Most people stay in their boxes forever. You didn't. That tells me something about you." He paused, his expression unreadable. "I'm looking for people like that. People with hunger, with courage. I can teach skills. I can't teach fire." Her chest tightened. "You're saying you'd give me a job?" He smirked slightly. "Not just a job, an opportunity. But it depends on whether you're willing to step into a world that will demand everything from you." Amara's pulse quickened. She thought of her siblings back home, the bills she could barely keep up with, the endless nights wiping tables until her feet ached. And now, here was a man offering her something beyond her wildest dreams. But there had to be a catch. There was always a catch. "Why me?" she whispered. Alexander's gaze sharpened. "Because you remind me of myself. Believe it or not, I wasn't born into money. I was the son of a mechanic. I fought for every inch I climbed. And when I see that fight in someone else, I pay attention." He leaned back, his words heavy with weight. "The world is full of dreamers, Amara, but very few are bold enough to take a step that risks everything. You already proved you are." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to reach out and grab this chance with both hands. But doubt gnawed at her. What if it was all just a cruel test? And the moment she said yes, he'd laugh and have her thrown back into economy where she belonged. As if sensing her fear, Alexander's voice softened. "You don't have to answer now. Think about it. But when this flight lands, I'll ask you one more time. And I'll only ask once." Amara didn't sleep that night. She stared out the window as the plane cut through the stars, her mind spinning with possibilities. She imagined walking into an office in a sleek suit, imagined a future where she wasn't just scraping by, but actually building something for herself and her family. Could she really leap into that world? The next morning, when the cabin lights brightened and attendants served breakfast, her nerves were on fire. Every time Alexander glanced at her, she felt the weight of the decision pressing closer. By the time the captain announced their descent, she thought her chest might burst. As the plane touched down smoothly on the runway, the moment arrived. Alexander packed away his laptop, turned to her, and asked, "So, have you decided?" Amara's mouth went dry. This was it. No more dreaming. No more hesitation. She could either shrink back into her old life, or step into something terrifyingly unknown. She looked into his eyes, and for the first time, spoke without doubt. "Yes, I'll do it." A slow, approving smile spread across Alexander's face. "Good. Then consider this the start of your new life." The plane rolled to a stop at the gate, and while other passengers gathered their things with the usual rush, Amara felt frozen in place. Her whole world had just shifted in the span of one night. She had boarded as a waitress with nothing but a reckless idea and a borrowed boarding pass. But she was stepping off as someone who had just been handed a door into a life she never thought possible. Alexander Kingston stood gracefully, his presence commanding without effort. He glanced back at her and gave a subtle nod, as though signaling her to follow. Amara rose, clutching her small purse tightly, her heart pounding with every step. Passengers watched them with curious eyes, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. But Alexander ignored them. He walked through the terminal like he owned it, which in a way he did. Outside, a black car waited. The chauffeur bowed slightly as Alexander slid in, and to Amara's shock, he gestured for her to join him. Her legs trembled as she climbed into the leather interior, the door closing with a soft thud that felt like the ceiling of her old life. For a moment, silence filled the car, broken only by the hum of the city beyond the tinted windows. Finally, Alexander spoke. "You said yes. That means no turning back. Do you understand that?" Amara swallowed hard. "I understand." "Good," he said. "Then here's what will happen. You'll start small. Observation, training. I'll place you in one of my companies, and I want to see how you handle yourself. You'll fail at times. Everyone does. But if you learn quickly, if you prove you can handle pressure, then you'll move up. And I promise you this. Within a year, your life will not look anything like it does today." Her breath caught. A year? It sounded impossible, but his tone wasn't one of empty promises. It was the voice of someone who had built empires brick by brick. She nodded, her voice firm. "I won't waste this chance." Alexander studied her quietly for a moment. "You'd better not." Then, unexpectedly, his tone softened. "You remind me of myself when I was younger. Hungry, stubborn, unwilling to accept the limits the world tried to place on me. That hunger can make you unstoppable if you don't let fear break you." The car ride ended at one of the tallest towers in the city, a skyscraper of glass and steel that glittered in the morning sun. Alexander led her inside, past marble floors and polished elevators, employees bowing their heads as he passed. Amara followed, trying to keep her head high despite the overwhelming grandeur. This was a world she had only ever seen in magazines or movies, and now she was walking through it like she belonged. They reached a private office on the top floor, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Alexander gestured to the view. "This is what it feels like to build something, to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. If you stay, if you commit, this could be your world too." Amara stepped closer to the glass, her reflection staring back at her, small but filled with determination. For the first time, she didn't feel like an outsider peeking through the window of someone else's life. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she could belong here. Alexander's assistant entered, handing him a folder. He signed it swiftly before turning back to Amara. "You'll begin tomorrow. Training, mentorship, the works. Don't expect kindness. You'll earn every step. But remember this. Boldness brought you here. Let it carry you forward." Amara nodded, her voice steady. "I won't let you down." For the next few weeks, her life changed in ways she couldn't have imagined. Early mornings turned into long days of learning, listening, and pushing herself beyond exhaustion. She stumbled, she made mistakes, but every time, she remembered Alexander's words. Fearlessness opens doors. Slowly, the staff who had once looked at her with doubt began to respect her. She absorbed everything like a sponge, from business strategy to negotiation, from leadership to discipline. But it wasn't just about the work. It was about the transformation inside her. Each day, she felt her old self, the waitress who thought she'd never belong, fade further away. And in her place grew a woman who dared to imagine herself worthy of greatness. Months later, as she stood in a boardroom presenting her first project to executives twice her age, she caught sight of Alexander at the end of the table. He didn't smile, but the approving look in his eyes said everything. She had taken the risk, and it was paying off. And one evening, long after the offices had emptied and the city lights flickered like stars below, Amara found herself alone in that same office with Alexander. He poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. "Do you remember," he asked, "what you told me on the plane? That you just wanted to know what it feels like to sit in that seat?" Amara laughed softly, shaking her head. I'll never forget. He raised his glass slightly. Well, you've earned your own seat now, and no one can take it from you. She looked out at the glowing skyline. The city spread wide beneath her, and felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. She had stolen a seat once, desperate to taste a world she thought was forbidden. But now, she didn't have to steal anymore. She had built her place, step by step, through courage and fire. And though the journey ahead was still uncertain, she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She would never again believe that the world was closed to her. She had walked through the door, and she would never step back out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends. And for more unbelievable stories, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell, so you'll never miss the next one.